meeting, we discussed the problem of integrated housing, and we found out that almost 1,700 Negroes are moving into Los Angeles a month. By 1970, there'll probably be 1 million Negroes in this city. And I know that people are concerned about this. They may not talk about it very often, but I certainly heard them shudder in church when he said there'd be 1 million Negroes in Los Angeles.
We shudder because we're saying, in essence, the majority of these people are not like we are. And we felt that maybe some of us felt we left the South because we were getting away from this problem.
Action.
I cannot unsee the 10 or 20 million immigrants that came across the border. I can't unsee it. I cannot unhear the fact that Nancy Pelosi said that she wanted to make these people legal. Not only did she want to make these people legal, but she also wanted to make sure they had a pathway to ownership of homes in America.
The American dream of home ownership available to all people is something we have to do for people who are here now.
This is before you were a citizen. This is undocumented. This is for the undocumented.
Well, what I would like to do is move them to documented. The fact that I can move them to documented. One of the best things that we can do for our economy is to pass comprehensive immigration reform.
And I started looking at black people in America. I started looking at black folks. And I said, what the hell happened? What happened to black politics? I thought about the Civil Rights Act of 1964. I thought about the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And I just started thinking about black politics. And I go back and I watch this old video of wealthy blacks talking about poor blacks.
We are part of this exodus too, but we are a little maybe embarrassed by the fact that here we're going to have a mass element come in that's going to create a tremendous social problem in the community to which we find a great deal of difficulty in relating to.
The biggest enemy to black politics has always been middle-class blacks and wealthy blacks because, man, a middle-class black person, they have just enough money not to give a damn about you. Hell yeah. They're comfortable enough not to have, they're too lazy to fight for real politics. And so, like, for me right now, what I just saw, so many black people, like 80% of black men voted for Kamala Harris. 92% of black women voted for Kamala Harris. Why? What did she offer you, black people? Or did you just look at her and say her complexion is close enough to my complexion, and so she must identify with me?
So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit black people. No.
Black Americans refuse to even acknowledge there's a class divide in America. You got wealthy blacks, middle-class blacks, and poor blacks. And these poor blacks, you won't even acknowledge that you're a poor black. And those other people up top, they'll tell you things like Anton Daniels.
I cannot be any more truthful with you. The minute that you break off of the Democratic plantation is the minute that you get rich. The minute that you break off from this victim Olympian mindset is the minute that you then become successful in every other aspect of your life.
I like watching his content. I think he's a very brilliant brother. But when he starts talking, when you say things like, if you vote Democrat, then you become rich, that's like saying that every Republican is rich. Why aren't all Republicans rich if it's just that easy, huh? For every person who has a little bit of money, they say, man, since I did it, then you can do it too. That's especially true for the black middle-class person or the black wealthy person. They absolutely believe that since they went to a 4-year college or they went and got a bigger degree, that you can do it too. But they don't tell you the hidden truth behind that degree. They won't tell you about it. They won't tell you about the $100,000 in debt. They won't tell you about the $200,000 in debt. They won't tell you about the stress and the depression of trying to keep up this lifestyle and this facade so that poor blacks look at them and say, hi, maybe one day I could be just like Anton Daniels.
It's the minute that you stop tying yourself to a group of people based off of something that they can't control and start tying yourself to people based off of the content of their character.
And now he might be the exception, right? When you have a norm, you look at America and working class America and you can look at it by the numbers, how many poor people. You can pull up the United States debt clock and you can see how much debt is in America. $35 trillion in debt because they're spending. I cannot unsee that during this COVID-19 pandemic, they spent $6-7 trillion. I can't unsee it. But every time historically, when they wanted to talk about the black man, when they wanted to talk about me and my economic and political position in America, there was no money. There's no money. There was never any money. Middle-class blacks, you got money. Wealthy blacks, y'all got money. And so when it's time to go vote, you're not voting for the poor people. You're not voting for black politics. Hell no.
In a society haunted by race, Being both middle class and black poses a special set of dilemmas. Over the last generation, more and more blacks have moved into the ranks of the middle class, highlighting class differences that lurk just beneath the surface of African American life.
You're voting to maintain your living conditions. You're voting to be comfortable. That's just continuing on to kick the can down the road. And as long as you got your big piece of chicken, then to hell with everybody else. And so when I look at all this historical information, when I look at the modern conversation right now, when I listen to the words of the Honorable Martin Luther King.
In this America, millions of work-starved men walk the streets daily in search for jobs that do not exist. In this America, millions of people find themselves living in rat-infested, vermin-filled slums. In this America, people are poor by the millions.
How did the Civil Rights Act benefit Martin Luther King? What did he gain from this? Maybe some notoriety, but you know what it ended with? It ended with his life, huh? Is there any professional class, middle class revolutionaries in America that are willing to sacrifice not only their wealth, but their lives in the advancement of black people for descendants of slaves, huh? Will you do that? Are there any lawyers in America that will take your firm and all of your time and dedicate it to black politics? Listen, when you go back to the Civil Rights Act, the Civil Rights marches, a lot of that funding came from Jewish money. The black politics was backed by Jewish money. And so, man, historically in America, black anger has been used, black poverty has been used to fuel money for all these groups of people. Hell yeah, for the NAACP, to whatever the group, you name it. They didn't use black emotions and black poverty to line their pockets with more money than they could ever spend while you still ain't got nothing. And won't nobody talk to you. Won't nobody tell you the truth. You know why no one hears the stories of poor blacks in America or working class blacks in America? Because the middle class and professional class people are doing all the talking. They're speaking for you. And when they speak for you, they're not representing your actual lived experience. They're giving you like the idea of what it means to have something. And so when I saw that for every other group, they get a house, they get access to capital to build a life in America. And for you, black man, don't be no victim. Don't acknowledge mass incarceration. Don't acknowledge Jim Crow. Don't acknowledge redlining. Don't acknowledge the fact that you lived in a nation for the better part of its existence, disliked, disdained the black worker in America. And after the black worker assimilated to higher status, he disliked and hated the black worker too, huh?
Class is a very uncomfortable topic for all Americans, and I think it's especially uncomfortable for black Americans. I think it's offensive to some people to think that there is a class structure in black America. I think that's probably rooted in the fact that minorities who have been oppressed in America do not ever want to be perceived as oppressive.
So what's the solution? Just like Fred Hampton, just like Martin Luther King, the solution has got to be collective politics, but the collective politics can't be based on identity. It has to be based on economics. It has to be 10 million men who understand the family court system is broken. Hell yeah, that's the starting place. Why? Because the black man is burdened by debt, because the black man ain't got no home. And so the first thing that you can do is make the black man economically free. And then if you acknowledge the fact that there are other men in America of other ethnicities, other cultures, backgrounds that are also burdened by the exact same debt, and they can't breathe in America. So then first men have to stand up and say, hey, I'm a man, I'm an equal citizen in this society. And all of a sudden, because hey, Martin Luther King and all these other black men, they didn't march to be black men. They marched to be full men, to be full citizens in this wonderful society. They marched to be Americans, not niggas. After you remove the debt off of men's shoulders in America, now we can have a for real political conversation, because the number one way to stop a man from being powerful is to put as much debt on him as possible, to break his heart by separating him from his children. That's how you neuter a man in America. You take away all of his physical power, you render him useless, and then the government can do whatever they want. I voted for Donald Trump, and Donald Trump won by such a landslide that he has a mandate that he can do or say whatever, unless the fourth branch of government shows their power. What's the fourth branch of government? It's the silent branch, and it has to be the loudest branch. The most powerful branch in American history has always been the people who vote for our elected representatives. You're the most powerful citizen that's ever existed in the history of the world. Why? because you have the ability to have direct conversation with other citizens and make decisions about our economic and political future going forward. You're the greatest American alive, and it's time to save America. It's time to save yourself. Goddamn, it's time to get excited.
The greatest American alive. The greatest American alive. The greatest American alive. The greatest American alive. The greatest American alive.